Good afternoon. This is author Brian Niemeier, brianniemeier.com, author of The Soul Cycle. With me, Yakov Merkin, author of the new science fiction novel, The Greater Duty. Here today to discuss writing non-human characters. This is a subject that I think has lots of merit, is highly relevant, especially during this week, which is Space Opera Week. But it seems to be an underserved subject. You don't actually have this. So that's why we're glad to have Yakov here. Write non-human characters in your stories. And hopefully you'll take some applicable advice from this episode. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Yakov. Yakov, thanks for coming. How are you this afternoon?
Thanks for having me again, sort of. I mean, I was on Geek Gab Prime previously. But now it's more fun because I get to have something to promote. Because my book just came out literally a couple days ago. So it's been fun. It's been a fun weekend. Of course, Space Opera Week happened at a perfect time for me. So I guess thank you to Tor.com for unwittingly giving me a really good reason to promote myself even more.
And we must always remember to thank them for their
even though the band me sing, I think.
For dropping the ball so we can pick it up. You're the pole prev. So do you have an elevator pitch for your book?
I do. I'm still fine-tuning this whole pitching thing, but yeah, so like a warrior struggles to prevent the collapse of a civilization he swore to protect. A young Grand Admiral seeks vengeance. An emotionless conqueror faces a crisis of conscience, and the fate of the galaxy hangs in the balance. So, I mean, The Greater Duty is a space opera that I guess in a lot of ways encompasses the stuff. I mean, really encompasses what I've loved about science fiction and stuff that I grew up with. Again, as I mentioned online, also a lot of non-human characters are the focus of this. Like, I have literally no human characters in the book because I decided I'm creating my own universe. I should create my own species anyway. And over on Superversive, my awesome editor, who I think you know, Ben Zwitzky, I think I pronounced it right or close enough. He also posted some good stuff on there about this. It has a corrupt and crumbling galactic republic, with ancient grievances flaring up into new bloodshed and a grave new threat to the old order, an uneasy alliance based on a lie, a seemingly impossible quest for vengeance, and an equally unlikely search for redemption.
Outstanding.
So there's a lot going on, both because I'm basically launching a galactic setting with this book, but also just because I like large-scale stories, and so that's what I've written here.
Yeah, I mean, what you've just given us, a little taste you've given us, is already packed with conflict and character and world building. The latter of which I know is not easy; it's very time consuming. So you've clearly put a lot of work into this.
Yeah, like I was writing up a glossary, put it at the end just because it also helps me to write it up. I was realizing there's a lot of stuff in here.
I'm also loving the cover of the book, which folks can see in your avatar image here by the great artist John Zalesny, famous from Rifts and Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun working with him.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back for our How to Find a Good Cover Artist episode, which is planned. But the topic today is how to write non-human characters. Now, you'd written a popular essay that is making the rounds on your blog about that subject. So, which we've also linked to in the show notes if folks want to read it, which I recommend. So, how do you write non-human characters? Let's just jump in.
Yeah, I was just looking when I posted that. I can't believe it's been almost 4 years already. Over 4 years. No, so I mean, it's just non-human characters, at least for me, is that something that kind of when I was starting to write science fiction is like that was the obvious thing for me to do, which I guess is shows how much I knew when I started writing, because apparently I was talking to John De La Rose yesterday, and he was talking about how he was told by like even editors at Bain that it's basically mandated that you don't have like humanoid alien like viewpoint characters. Like it's just something you don't do, which actually very surprising to me. But I mean, basically, I was rereading my own article just to remember what I actually said 4 years ago. I mean, it really basically comes down to a few major points for writing them. It's really just making them actually alien, whether that's physical or psychological or combination of both. And also, especially if they're viewpoint characters, you also have to balance them. It's obviously a fine line a lot of the time with making them relatable and making them like if they're your viewpoint characters, you have to be able to identify with them and like them. And then the last thing is just, I guess, avoiding a problem that I've seen a lot, especially on, I guess, probably science fiction TV shows like Star Trek more than Star Wars, but it's also, or movies, but it's also a thing in Star Wars and other, and I guess Mass Effect and things like that also, where I'm very one note, and it's like, and they basically become like everyone in the species is the exact same way, which, I mean, I don't like using the term realism, but from the point of view of creating an actual civilization, even in a situation where there's a galactic setting and you have other species to compete with, there's still going to be divisions, still going to be differences in individuals. So you have to bear that in mind also.
Right. It's like the old Star Trek cliche of, well, we're just going to take a guy and staple a paper plate to his head and call him an alien.
Yeah, and then they all act the same way. They have the one thing they care about, and that's all that's their whole shtick.
Right. Like, where are the Klingon engineers? Where are the Klingon philosophers?
Yeah.
You know, the Ferengi artists. But yeah. Although, I think Deep Space Nine helped to salvage the Ferengi a little bit, who were originally these caricatures, where there's an episode where Sisko and Quark are having a discussion, and Sisko starts hitting on Ferengi, and Quark serves him a nice tall glass of shut the hell up when he says, look, yeah, I mean, we might be greedy, we might be avarice, but we never enslaved our own species, we never carried out a genocide like humans did.
Yeah, I think as Star Trek went along with more series, they did, to their credit, flesh out most of their alien species, like even like the Cardassians in Deep Space Nine. They did a lot with them. Klingons obviously got a lot of attention through all the series. So, and I guess you could see with the original series, part of that was budget, like limited resources to get things done. But Deep Space Nine, in a lot of ways, is definitely my second favorite, if not my favorite, of the Star Trek, just because they went into so many areas, both with the aliens and with other stuff that other series didn't get to go, and really fleshed out the universe a lot more.
So, on that note, can you describe one non-human species from your book and how they fit these criteria, talking about how they differ psychologically and or physically from humans, but how they're still individuated?
Yeah, I mean, just think about which ones are the most relevant or most, I guess, best example.
Just pick one. Your favorite.
Yeah, I guess the best example off the top of my head would probably be the Pteranodons, of which one of them is a viewpoint character. And as we see, this shouldn't be a spoiler, because I think it's early in the book this stuff is discussed, that they were basically, I guess the term is, they're uplifted species that had been like a low-level life form thousands or more than 100,000 or more years previously, and then another more advanced alien species had basically saved them from extinction and basically uplifted about 1,000 of them, and then basically left them in these genetic engineering chambers that altered them, that made them into what they are in the book, and basically program them with certain goals that these other aliens had in mind for them. And obviously, as you can see from the cover, they don't look like humans. That's on the cover is Darklaw, who's one of the main characters in the book. He's Pteranodon, so you could clearly see how physically it doesn't look like a human, but also with that species specifically, they're basically created as a military force that the other aliens may or may not have wanted to use for their own purposes, but for the purposes of this book, they have their own military agenda, and they're basically created with that focus and with a very strict concept of following the orders of their superior and of basically valuing martial quality over most other things. And of course, you have both between Darkla and some of the other Pteranodon characters in the book. They aren't all the same. They have their own views on things. Although in this book, they're more, I guess, they're not all this. They don't all have the same ideology, but it's much closer. But in later books in the series, which I'm writing the sequel right now, due to events in this book, things start to diverge even more for them. And it's actually a lot of fun because I get to kind of create a species that is also finding its own place in the galactic setting, even as I'm creating them and deciding how things are going to work.
All right, and I really like the name of that species too.
And see, I was actually, and some of my initial concepts of the story back over a decade ago when I first started writing what has become this book is I got really fascinated with the concept of the dinosauroid. I forget which paleontologist put that theory. Basically, it was like a theory of what if, or I believed to be the most intelligent dinosaur species had not gone extinct and had instead evolved and continued to exist today, and how they would look and stuff like that. So I kind of based a lot of the initial concepts of Pteranodons on the Troodon dinosaurs, and then eventually I decided it would make more sense to use my own name, and so I came up with Pteranodons, and it sounded good, so that's what I stayed with.
Okay, we've got some questions from the chat. So, first of all, it definitely looks like you have a cat lady there. So, what's your opinion of furries?
Well, furries in general, I don't know. I haven't really been involved. I've just seen the general online shenanigans that involve both people who are furries themselves, or people who either talk about it or make fun of it on different occasions, depending on who is involved. And the alt furry, I've seen people discussing that on Twitter, but I'm not exactly sure what it is 100%. I guess it's furries who are also politically on the right, I guess.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. So we have a few more. What's your favorite alien race in fiction?
There are a lot that I like. If I had to go, yes, instinct would go to either the Quarians or the Turians from Mass Effect. Because even though Mass Effect kind of bothered me in that it still made humans basically the saviors of the galaxy and have the main focus, but I would have rather played an alien if I could. But those species, especially because we get main characters who are of those species who are present in all of the 3 original games, like those species, I think, really help me figure out what qualities go with, like what you need to write a good non-human species.
Okay. And let's see, take one more. Looks like we have 2 more. So just I'll get something out of the way really quick here.
Yeah.
Corian asks about differences between writing non-human characters in science fiction and fantasy. One, I'm pretty big on genre bashing, so I don't really recognize a hard and fast line between the genres.
Yeah, I actually don't either. I actually deliberately want to mix them in my later books. I'm working on stuff now, and like part of my idea also is like well, if there were advanced aliens and they found like a fantasy planet, why wouldn't they get involved and mess with things? So,
Good man. So finally, can you think of any Star Trek books that deal well with non-humans and that may have inspired a greater duty?
I don't know. There's a lot of over my lifetime, most of I've watched more like visual science fiction stuff and actually have read. So like really most of my inspiration for non-human characters came from stuff like Star Wars, Star Trek, Mass Effect. I think I listened to StarCraft in a recent article also. But also I mean, fantasy does help also because fantasy does have non-human characters, even though they're often very close to human. But there is room to mess with. I'm working actually editing it. Ben and I are actually Ben is working on an epic fantasy with me right now that he's editing. And the main character of that book is a dragon, and there are no humans in that world either. So, no, it's not only dragons are not the only species, and they're not even the main species in the book, but the world itself doesn't have humans, and the main character is, as I said, a dragon. So it's a lot of fun.
All right, phenomenal. Well, we are out of time. Well, time does fly.
Yeah, right, very quick.
Well, thanks for joining us. I would like to remind everyone to check out Yakov's blog. You can find in the show notes below. Also, go and pick up a copy of A Greater Duty, available now from Amazon for Kindle.
And as I last checked, it was under 15 in the top 1,500 of space opera. So be cool to see how far up we could get it.
Okay, and also, while you're at it,
and also the paperback paperback version should be out within a few days. I actually just got the initial file from the folks over at Polgaris.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully within the next couple of days that'll be finalized, and then as soon as I have it done, I'm going to get it up there.
Very good. Yeah, it can take a couple extra days, but no worries. So that'll be up there for you folks who like the Dead Tree editions. We love you too. If you're one of those who's already helped A Greater Duty to send up the Amazon charts, my award-winning Soul Cycle series is also available in paperback and for ebook. So also make sure to double secret subscribe to Geek Gab. We've got Geek Gab Prime, the show on the books, and our co-host Dornall occasionally does some very well-received RPG specials. So for Geek Gab on the books, this is Brian Niemeier.
And
here with our special guest. Yep, Yakov Merkin, friend of both shows. We will see you next time.